Thoughts. I'm Shone, spelled with a W, and thank you for joining me on this beautiful, beautiful frigid evening, at least for me. So behind me, before I begin talking, I put up a painting that I had created myself, and with source, with God, and the paints and such. And I don't know. I feel that I love when art is very simple, and for me, this process to create this was simple, and that makes it more extraordinary when I look at it. And even right now, as I sit and I look at it, I can kind of see different Pokemon parts or different beings that my eyes can create, like, as if we were sitting there lying on the grass looking up at the sky of all those big puffy clouds in the air and seeing different characters. And yeah, so when I look at this, I kind of see the different aspects of characters or beings within all these shapes and colors. And anyways, yeah, I thought I would, in a sense, showcase that today and try to use some lighting effect to maybe create a different perspective of something that I've already seen. So, like right now, for example, I've seen this painting in normal light an awful lot, and now when I watch this video, I'll be able to see a different perspective of this exact same painting. And yeah, so welcome. So, in a sense, I had to immediately start this talk, and what prompted me was something along the lines of leading to something that I had said, I believe, yesterday about talking about love. And as soon as I recalled remembering that I said that, I got, in a sense, super excited to actually discuss the topic of love. First of all, I believe, like, in a sense, God is the frequency of love, means that feeling that when we're really in love is a quite close to how we feel, or how, I don't know how to explain it, but anyways, I believe that love is super, super important. And it's not just love as in love between two people, but just the frequency of love is super important. When I was younger than I would even understand what we think love is now, I had my own ideas of love. I wrote poetry about love, and I was in love with lots of girls, and I loved love, and I wrote songs about love and ballads and short stories and just whatever I could do. And I would always love working on the theme of love. I had compiled, I guess you could say, a book of different creations, like literary creations, and put them into a book called Madly in Love, because even as a 16-year-old boy, I thought love was like so amazing, the feeling of it. And it leads me to think that it would be a very challenging life if I were to think of never having experienced love. And apparently there are beings on our planet that don't experience love. And so love is one of my favorite things to think and talk about and experience. And there's so many different parts about love. In this book I was reading by Paul Selig, he had talked about, or the person channeled had mentioned something along the lines of that you will truly understand what love is when you love, and he was using the feminine at the time, that you love the postman as you love your husband, like that's where the true understanding of love is, that same appreciation and joyfulness and all those things, that if we were to say love everyone around us in that frequency, that just by doing that we would massively alter our world. So yeah, I know I had lots of other things when I think about the topic of love. When I look at the videos that were on my old channel, on YouTube, and they're still right now on Rumble, and there was a lot of I am love, I am loved, and different styles of you could say, or forms of love within a relationship. And relationship to me doesn't necessarily mean like two individuals in a romantic thing. Relationship is the connection between any two individuals. So love can be shared in a multitude of relationships. However, I think one of the unexplored reservoirs of possible potential energy for where we move as a collective is the exploration of love beyond bounds. And I wrote a possibilities video called Love Beyond Bounds because it encompasses the idea of that we were in such a structured situation where even our ability to love was compromised and controlled. They told us through religion, and they told us through the government structure and the divorce and marriage whole system thing. They told us what love was permissible to be. At one point in time, people were married just because of out of convenience, and love wasn't even the issue. However, now up until now, because I'm believing things are changing, love was in a sense controlled. We were told what we could and couldn't do. Society deemed what was accessible and not accessible. And that kept many hearts apart. Because for me, love isn't one man, one woman. Love is wherever that love is found, when it's in unison with the highest good for all parties involved. So that's the important part. And sometimes many people will judge for themselves what they think is permissible, even if it's semi-acceptable in the world. And I think it's more important to value people's choice and good reasoning to making their own decisions in their life about what love is good for them and it's not good for them. And then the respect of everyone around us to accept that, to accept a boy for having pink hair or a girl for having tattoos or, I don't know, overalls, or like just to accept people for how they choose to express themselves. I think that is more along the lines of what love is, the frequency of love. Like I said before, being able to love the postman like the husband, in the sense that you're able to afford that person and love that person for being who they are. And then, of course, we have the romantic style of love that was casted upon that with shopping holidays and vacations and expectations and Valentine's Days that celebrated mass murders of many, like that Valentine's Day massacre, and that seems to be sensationalized through that. And then, of course, other things for what St. Valentine actually did and participated in. But nonetheless, we turn it into a marketing scheme, a way to sell chocolate, a way to sell dreams and create low vibrations and get people to spend money on things they wouldn't have normally done. And yeah, so love, in a sense, was corrupted to keep us from experiencing it. See, I think the reason why love was so interfered with by religion, especially, is that it was easier to control. And many people were locked in relationships that didn't have love. They were devoid of it. They were arranged marriages or accidents or, a little bit too much liquor. And, I'm getting a little lost at what I'm saying, but that a lot of relationships weren't born in love. And even if they were born in love, a short while later when that love left, that people were stuck in other systems still within that and were unable to get out. And of course, that in itself creates a ton of issues to do within their own energy fields and their own homes and such, when you're stuck in a situation and you're just forcing it to go through. And so love in itself, it changes just like everything else. And it's the more mature mind to understand when that love does change, and then to release it and let go and still flourish and not fall prey to the lower vibrations that would see that as an opportunity to create depression or anger or jealousy within people. So one of the things that I had heard was that one of the things that's occurring right now is we're reconnecting with love and with that expression of love. And so I often like to think about, experiencing myself more love in so many different fashions, and more children and more relationships, and overall just more of congratulating other people's wins in my reality, like around me, seeing their successes and being able to share that expression of good job. This transition that we're at the end of, I'm hoping, it has left a lot of time for self-reflection. And I think that self-reflection is a huge part of accessing that love, that ability to love. And being able to look within and recognize, well, that we don't perhaps love, not the way that we think that we do. Like, I never realized that love was even a tool of manipulation for quite a while, because I didn't really think of it that way. However, now I've come to truly understand it's not even that that's the way it was, it's that we were programmed to expect it to be that way. And so therefore, when it happened, we had expectations, and generally we would succumb to our expectations. One of those case in points for me was I had a store, and that store was broken into and a lot of stuff was stolen. And of course I was very upset about it. And I had an expectation based on all the TV shows that I had seen that I was going to have to fight with the insurance company on it. However, it was to my amazement, or my delight, I'll probably say more so, that there was no issue. The process was very, very simple, and it was just done. And even though I had the expectation of it being more difficult. However, there are, as I've mentioned before, a lot of situations where events don't even transpire fully until we see that they happened on the news, and therefore we contributed to it. Earlier today, and this is segueing off of or maybe I'll talk about this later. So yeah, I want to make sure this stays all about love. So back to love. Love is a magnificent feeling. And being able to recall those moments when we are in love is definitely something that adds to our field. It adds energy. Love is not just a connection. It's when you're sharing it, it's how I see it anyways. It's kind of like the idea of when you have one horse and that's pulling a buggy, well, you have 1 horsepower. And then when you get 2 horses together, it's 2 horsepower. But when you get, then when you get 4, it's 16 horsepower, or something like along the lines of that. But it's an exponential growth. So when you're bringing more people together, the love becomes even more incredibly powerful. And that really does go into what I was saying about the love beyond bounds, because I think in the future that it should be possible, or it will be possible, definitely, as we take our sovereignty back, to experience love in different relationship types, not to be separated by ageism, or, like I said, of course, there's a reasonable time frame. Like they say that the woman's brain doesn't become fully formed until 24. I'm not sure if the man takes a little longer or not, but there's that one factor, and then there's other factors of other ages and such. So the idea is that everything that is acceptable within reason, but I'm more pointing to the adult relationships. That's kind of where I'm more geared towards, because that's where I am. So we're not necessarily talking about juvenile relationships, but the more adult relationships that perhaps we can live in a different type of reality and a different type of even dating system. Like, imagine making the decision that you want to experience a certain experience with a partner, like say a lover, and you're going to be in some country for a month, and then you're basically coming to an agreement to meet someone who wants to experience the other half of that as well, and depending on what you're doing there. And that relationships could be more open-minded maybe. And if, for instance, if there was a woman who didn't have very much time, but she was in one hemisphere for half the year and another hemisphere the other half of the year, and she wanted to have a husband on either side, like, I think there's a lot of possibility for us to experience different types of relationships. I was recently watching this show called Sister Wives, I think it's called, or something to do with Sister Wives. But anyways, it was a show that followed the different types of polygamous relationships. But anyways, the different type of relationships where there was more than one wife, and they called them sister wives. And to listen to these women's stories about the benefits they received from it was just mind blowing, because that was really interesting. It was mind blowing because the being able to see different people's perspectives of why they're doing things. Like, I also watched this TV show a couple decades back called Big Love, and that was another type of show about alternatives, about one man who was trying to be a pillar in his community while he had 3 sister wives. And that part, for them, it was very spiritual, and it was showing the spiritual pitfalls per se in the TV show of what that type of relationship could do, or the stress that it could bring. And it was definitely stressful having to run around like everyone's head cut off. But I think that if we, or not we, but I mean, I think that if people are more open and loving, see, there we all come all the way back to loving again, and open with their communication and honest, and have released the past. I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of different type of loving relationships. And yeah, it might not be for everyone. For some, or maybe even most people, they'll be more comfortable with the traditional relationship. However, we are definitely seeing that people are evolving in the way that they perceive. And perhaps once more, as love becomes the connection that brings us together rather than lust. Because although in my series I tried to balance love and lust, I still lust is still, like, for me anyway, not for me, but how I see it, it's more raw and it's more physical. And so that's something that can be shared between a couple. But what I'm meaning is that as we step away from relationships that hold no little value other than physical gratification, and we move into relationships that are open, honest, and like however many wives or however many husbands or however the relationship has been agreed upon. See, when I first started hearing about this type of other relationship, because I once again thought, A plus B, and I'm very open to any other type of lesbian or homosexual relationship. I think that, as I said, people should love how they choose to love. And anyways, how they want to, or how they prefer. Yeah, prefer is a good word. But I still think there's a huge possibility for extra love being added in there, especially after watching that Sister Wives show. So yeah, I think I got a lot about love. Just, it's an awesome feeling, and I do really hope that everyone could and should essentially experience it, because that is the frequency, or a major frequency, of who we are. Because as I said before, I believe that God is love, and we are of God. Therefore, we are of love ourselves. And when we connect, when that loving connection between two is made, we are feeling God. And one of my first speeches that I gave on is, and I took it down from YouTube, but it's still up on Rumble, is that it talked about, or made the connection, that perhaps love is the feeling when we're at that highest level of a climax. Like that, maybe that is the feeling of what love, or the frequency of love, and we're feeling it, and the true connection. So many things still to talk about love. Like I said, really love this conversation, this topic. Yeah, especially with the amount of love that's incoming to our planet. Carrie Kay has talked about several dragons, 6 of them thus far, and they've come in with their frequencies, like they've added their energy to our perhaps space that we're in now. As well as it's been said that there's different children on the planet that are coming in with a higher vibrational frequency, therefore more love added to our system, and that they're rainbow or indigo, no, maybe not indigo, I think rainbow. Anyways, there's several different labels put on the different generations of kids coming in, but that there are here children here now and more possibly to come that will add to that energy field or that love that we're experiencing now. And even like with the organization Care, when I see of it being for the restoration of Earth, for me that's also a loving action that we're going to spend more time caring about our planet and making sure that we're in balance and alignment. And there's something that used to be before called the primordial directive, and that was essentially a recipe in order for the care and maintenance of Earth, the love that was balanced within our planet. And that's one thing that fell out of severe alignment, leading us to where we are now. Yet, if and hopefully we will experience more love, and that'll make restoration or just bringing the collective of humans or homo sapiens on the planet together. More love means an easier way to glue us together, not with just everyone doing the same thing, but you know, I think that even being in a state of love, when people hear honesty, like even criticism about themselves, and if they know it's coming from a good place, it doesn't have to be judged and turned into an argument. There is a phrase that Sunny and I were posting about, and it's the assumption that the other person's intention, they have a saying for it, but always assume positive intentions. Yeah, always assume positive intentions. And if we could do that and overcome that programming that gets us to assume the worst, then, or not to assume anything at all, but rather to assume positive intentions. That was just such a divine way, it's a divine way of looking at life, is to always assume positive intentions, and then expressing or feeling or responding to even criticism becomes much easier. And then that's going to make our healing considerably easier. Because in the talk that I'm going to talk about soon, it's like love is the remedy for that talk as well. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that you gain something of value from me sharing today. I'm really enjoying just talking, and in this sense, not having to self-edit or worry if the volume or something is. I feel that what I'm doing right now is adequate for sound and such. If you do have any concerns or whatever about the audio, then definitely share them in the comments with me. Comment, I love it. I'm really appreciating that connection that is made in the comments. And sometimes you may leave a comment somewhere and maybe the person who made the video doesn't even see the comment, because not all people seem to care as much about comments. And a lot of the comments I can definitely tell are AI generated, the way that they're written and such. But for me, the comments are definitely a way of connecting, but also for you connecting to other people. Like I've met people through, or online people, but I've met them through commenting on someone else's site. And then that's a really cool effect of how we can all come together, be united by that little bit of extra love. See, I see love, and I've mentioned this before, or giving likes and even comments as ways of expressing love often I'll go into a comments, and even if there's 200 comments there, I'll like each one of them, especially if I like that video, because I want to perhaps give people a reason why to come back at that particular video. I don't purposely do it, but I trust that if that video resonated with me, then by me giving all those likes, occasionally there might be a person or two who comes back to that video at that exact time that they needed to hear it again. There's a lot of things that are synchronicities, and when we're in a state of love, that helps us remain in alignment with those synchronicities, and they're not coincidences. It's almost as if we have a list of things that we're meant to do while we're here, and the more that we stay in alignment to them, you can even say stay in a state of love, the more that and the quicker we are essentially learning them. And so even love happens like that. And love can be in the most simplest thing, as a smile. Like, I've often thought about when, like, they say that there's so many different cliche sayings about how giving them a smile can improve like one person's day or a whole person's day. But the reality of it is, it's true. People can be down, and that one smile is of genuine smile for just the sake of smiling, maybe even not for picking up or gaining favor, but just to share that smile. That can uplift a person to tremendous heights. And even if it doesn't change them in that moment, there can be a point of reflection when they recall back to the smile. And then that can even trigger something else. So it's like everything has a web effect to it. And sometimes when we don't get the instant gratification outcomes that we expect in the moment, they can still come later, especially if we don't resist against them and start judging it as, oh, that didn't happen. Case in point, someone smiles at one person and the other person doesn't smile back. They might even scowl because they're shocked. And I've done that so many times. Like, I've looked at people who are smiling at me, sometimes pretty women, and I like winced, or sometimes like dumbfounded, just stared and then looked away. And there's people smiling at me, and I just didn't see it because I wasn't in that the moment. I was in some thought generally and doing something, and I never imagined like moving my head up and catching eyes with someone, whether they were pretty or not, or man or woman, whatever. It's just someone being nice, and my mind is still in that, like that scientist type who's busy working in his laboratory and completely oblivious, like that movie Flubber with Robin Williams, when he just completely was in his own thoughts and in his own mind, creating and wondering and inventing, and the outside world kind of took a back seat. But funny enough, even the actual theme of that movie was love too. It was about the professor trying to get married while creating his passionate inventions. And so, yeah, love really does unite us, and they have ensured that they have kept this topic in our society, especially through all these other types of love that they tell us that love is. Death to us part. Well, maybe love doesn't have to be till death to us part. Maybe love can be, a year. And then when both parties realize, oh, this isn't working, it's just moving separately, like moving on from that. And as I said, maybe there are also relationships where, you can agree for the term of the relationship up front, and then there's no issues. Now, it all definitely requires a lot of adultism, like being adults about it. And healing jealousy, for example. You can't have, and that was one of the things in the Sister Wives shows, you can't have the wives jealous of one another. So jealousy is a lower vibration anyways. It's not even something that we may even recognize without being programmed. The interesting thing is, a lot of the lower vibrational emotions that we experienced as Homo sapiens were pre-programmed. Like, we were literally told by different types of TV propaganda and schooling about it how we look to react when something like that happens. And in a sense, well, we're contributing into it as well. But I don't want to go down that road, because this was all about the beautiful parts of love. And there is so much of this planet that we can love. There's so much love that's in the emotion of gratitude. So if you want to, for example, you're like me, there is no one around me right now that I can share that love with, like in a relationship, like adult relationship such. So I practice sharing that love with, of course, love for Source and God. Thank you very much for everything. Also for love through gratitude, for being grateful for almost everything that happens, including the rain and the trees that protect from the rain when it's raining and it's so beautiful. Like in that video that I showed you, that tree where it's just raining while I had my audio I foresee. Like, I love that tree. I love this tree. Like, I'm sitting beside it right now. And so love can even go beyond bounds of just human relationships. Like, we know about love when it comes to our pets. However, whatever, there's a lot of other animals out there too. Like, the amount of animals that we have for pets is just a small fraction of the animal life that exists on this planet. And even if we can start to share and express our love for the animal life and for the environment and for Earth and for ourselves, and I think we're gonna do pretty well. And so I'm gonna leave it at that, because this has been however long it's been, and I've enjoyed speaking about it. I have a very big smile on my face. I look forward to experiencing, sharing, hearing about love in all of its forms. So thank you so much. May love find you always as it will, and may we all get one more step closer to returning to Source. Thank you so much. Love you, and have a wonderful night.